If you've ever felt like you're failing the people you love most, this story will touch your heart. Stay with me. What happens next will show you that sometimes love comes from the most unexpected places. I thought I had everything figured out. Money, success, power. But when my little boy broke down crying in that park, I realized I had nothing. Then she appeared, a stranger who showed my son the love I'd forgotten how to give. That hug changed both our lives forever. My name is Adrian, and this is the story of how I learned to feel again. 2 years ago, my world collapsed. My wife Sarah died in a car accident, leaving me alone with our 5-year-old son Tyler. I thought I could handle it. I thought my success in business would somehow translate to being a good father. I was wrong about everything. After Sarah's funeral, I threw myself into work even harder than before. It was easier than facing the reality at home. Every morning I'd wake up in our empty house, help Tyler get ready for school with mechanical efficiency, and hand him off to the nanny. Every evening, I'd come home to find him already asleep, or pretending to be asleep when he heard my footsteps in the hallway. I told myself I was providing for him. I told myself that keeping busy was healthy, but the truth was I was running away from the pain of losing Sarah and the terrifying responsibility of raising a child who looked exactly like her. Tyler barely spoke to me anymore. When he did, it was in whispers, like he was afraid of disturbing me. His bright blue eyes, so much like his mother's, seemed to dim a little more each day. I watched him becoming a shadow of the happy, chattering boy he used to be, and I felt completely helpless. The nannies tried to help, but Tyler pushed them away too. He'd grown quiet and withdrawn, spending hours playing alone in his room. I'd catch glimpses of him through the doorway sometimes, having conversations with his toys that he'd never have with me. It broke something inside me every time, but I didn't know how to fix it. Then came that Tuesday in October. The nanny had called in sick, so I had to pick Tyler up from school myself. It was unusual for me, and I could see the surprise in his teacher's eyes when I showed up at the classroom door. Tyler looked confused too, like he wasn't sure if he should be happy or worried that I was there. We drove to the park near our house in silence. Tyler sat in the back seat, clutching his small backpack and staring out the window. I thought maybe some fresh air would be good for both of us. I thought maybe we could finally have a conversation, father to son. I was wrong again. The moment we got to the park, everything went wrong. Tyler wanted to go on the swings, but there was a long line of kids waiting. He asked me to push him on the merry-go-round, but I was distracted by a work call. When I finally hung up, he was sitting alone on a bench, looking lost and abandoned. "Tyler, come on," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Let's go play on the slide." But he shook his head and I could see tears starting to form in his eyes. "I want Mommy," he whispered. Those 3 words hit me like a punch to the chest. I knelt down in front of him, trying to think of what to say, but my mind went blank. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that Mommy isn't coming back? How do you comfort a child when you can barely hold yourself together? "Tyler, you know Mommy can't—" "I want Mommy," he screamed, and the tears started flowing. Not just crying, but the kind of heartbroken sobbing that comes from a place of deep, inconsolable pain. I looked around the park, feeling panic rise in my chest. Other parents were staring at us. Children stopped playing to watch. I tried to pick Tyler up, but he pushed me away, his small fists hitting my chest. "I want Mommy! I want Mommy! I want Mommy!" I had no idea what to do. Every instinct told me to fix this, to make it stop. But I couldn't. I couldn't bring Sarah back. I couldn't take away his pain. I couldn't even take away my own. For 20 minutes, Tyler cried like his heart was breaking. I sat there next to him on that bench, feeling like the worst father in the world. I tried everything I could think of, offering ice cream, promising toys, even suggesting we go home and watch cartoons. Nothing worked. If anything, my desperate attempts seemed to make him cry harder. That's when she appeared. I first noticed her walking toward us from across the park. She was a black woman in her early 30s, wearing a simple yellow dress and carrying a small purse. There was something gentle about the way she moved, something that made her stand out from the other parents hurrying past with their own children. She stopped about 10 feet away from our bench and looked at Tyler with the kind of genuine concern I hadn't seen in anyone's eyes for a long time. Then she looked at me, and I saw something else there. Understanding, not judgment. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I couldn't help but notice. Is everything okay? Would it be all right if I tried to help?" I should have said no. I should have told her we were fine, that I could handle my own son. But I was desperate, and there was something in her voice that made me trust her instinctively. I I don't know what to do, I admitted, and saying those words out loud felt like admitting defeat. She nodded and took a step closer. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward Tyler. I nodded, watching as she approached my son with the kind of calm confidence I'd never possessed. She sat down on the bench next to him, but not too close. She didn't try to touch him or stop his crying right away. She just sat there letting him cry, occasionally making soft, soothing sounds. "Hey there, little one," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Nina. I can see you're really sad right now." Tyler looked up at her through his tears, his sobbing quieting to sniffles. There was something about her presence that seemed to calm him immediately. "You know," Nina continued, "sometimes when I'm really sad, I like to take deep breaths with someone. Would you like to try that with me?" Tyler nodded, still hiccuping from crying so hard. Nina took a slow, exaggerated breath in through her nose, and Tyler tried to copy her. They did this together several times, and I watched in amazement as my son's breathing started to return to normal. "That's so good," Nina said, smiling at Tyler. "You're very brave. Do you want to tell me why you're feeling sad?" "I miss my mommy," Tyler whispered, and I felt my heart break all over again. Nina's expression softened even more. "Oh, sweetheart, I can see how much you love your mommy. Missing someone we love is one of the hardest feelings in the world." She paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. "You know what? I think your mommy would want you to know that it's okay to feel sad sometimes. But I also think she'd want you to know that you're not alone. You have your daddy right here who loves you so much." Tyler looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw something other than fear or sadness in his eyes. He looked uncertain, like he wanted to believe Nina, but wasn't sure if he could. "Can I give you a hug?" Nina asked Tyler gently. "Sometimes hugs help when we're feeling sad." Tyler nodded, and Nina opened her arms. He practically fell into her embrace, and she held him close, rocking him gently back and forth. I watched this stranger comfort my son in a way I'd never been able to do, and instead of feeling jealous, I felt grateful. For the first time since Sarah's death, Tyler's body relaxed completely. He melted into Nina's arms like he was finally safe, finally allowed to just be a 5-year-old boy who missed his mother. "Sometimes," Nina whispered into his hair, "when people go to heaven, they send us special people to help take care of us. Maybe your daddy is one of those special people your mommy sent." Tyler pulled back to look at Nina's face, then turned to look at me. Really look at me, for the first time in months. "Daddy?" he said, his voice small and uncertain. "Yes, buddy," I managed to say, my own voice thick with emotion. "I'm sad about Mommy." "I know, Tyler. I'm sad too." He climbed down from Nina's lap and walked over to me. Without saying anything, he crawled into my lap and put his small arms around my neck. I held him close, feeling his warm little body against mine. And for the first time since Sarah died, I let myself cry too. Nina watched us with tears in her own eyes, giving us space to have this moment we'd both needed for so long. When we finally pulled apart, Tyler was looking at me with those bright blue eyes, and I could see a spark of hope there that hadn't been there before. "Thank you," I said to Nina, meaning it more than I'd ever meant anything in my life. "You're welcome," she replied. "I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I'm used to helping little ones through big feelings. But I think you two are going to be just fine." She started to gather her purse, preparing to leave, but Tyler grabbed her hand. "Wait," he said. "Will you have coffee with us?" Daddy always gets coffee after the park. I looked at Nina, hoping she'd say yes. There was something about her that made me want to know more, something that made me feel like maybe I wasn't completely hopeless as a father. "I'd love to," she said, smiling at both of us. We walked to a small cafe near the park, Tyler holding both our hands and chattering away like he hadn't done in months. Nina listened to everything he said with genuine interest, asking questions about his favorite toys and his friends at school. Over coffee, Nina told me about her job teaching kindergarten at a school downtown. She talked about how much she loved working with children, how every day brought new challenges and new moments of joy. There was a warmth in her voice when she spoke about her students that made me understand why Tyler had responded to her so quickly. I have to ask, I said, stirring my coffee nervously, why did you help us today? Most people would have just walked past. Nina considered this for a moment. I lost my father when I was about Tyler's age, she said quietly. I remember feeling so angry and confused, and I remember how much I needed someone to just see me, to acknowledge that what I was feeling was real and valid. She looked at Tyler, who was coloring on a napkin with crayons the cafe had provided. I could see that Tyler was hurting, and I could see that you were hurting too. Sometimes we all need someone to remind us that we're not alone. I felt something crack open inside my chest. When was the last time someone had seen me, really seen me, as more than just a successful businessman or a widower to be pitied? I don't know how to do this, I admitted, gesturing toward Tyler. I don't know how to be the father he needs. You love him, Nina said simply. That's the most important thing. Everything else can be learned. Over the next few weeks, Nina became a regular part of our lives. She'd meet us at the park after school sometimes, or join us for dinner at family restaurants where Tyler could be loud and messy without judgment. She showed me things I'd never thought of. How to really listen when Tyler talked about his day, how to get down on the floor and play with him, how to make bedtime a time for connection instead of just another task to complete. Under Nina's gentle guidance, Tyler began to open up more. He started telling me about his dreams, his fears, his favorite things. He'd curl up next to me on the couch while we watched cartoons, something he hadn't done since his mother died. Slowly, carefully, we were building a relationship that felt real and honest. I found myself looking forward to seeing Nina more and more. She had a way of making everything feel lighter, more manageable. When Tyler had a meltdown at the grocery store, she helped me see it as a normal part of childhood instead of evidence of my failure as a parent. When I felt overwhelmed by work and single parenthood, she reminded me that asking for help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. One evening, about a month after we'd first met, Nina brought a small bouquet of flowers to our house. But instead of keeping them for herself, she showed Tyler how to present them to me. These are for you, Daddy, Tyler said, beaming as he handed me the flowers. Nina says flowers make people happy. I looked at Nina over Tyler's head, understanding what she was doing. She was teaching Tyler how to show affection, how to do small kind things for people he loved. It was a lesson I'd never thought to teach him, but one that seemed obvious now. Thank you, buddy, I said, hugging Tyler close. They're beautiful. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Nina and I sat on my back porch, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her childhood, her dreams of maybe having children of her own someday. I told her about Sarah, about the guilt I carried over not being able to save her, about my fears of failing Tyler the way I felt I'd failed as a husband. You didn't fail Sarah, Nina said gently, and you're not failing Tyler. Love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. You make it look so easy, I said. It's not easy, she replied, but it's worth it. Under the soft glow of the porch light, with Tyler sleeping safely inside, Nina and I shared our first kiss. It was gentle and sweet, full of promise and possibility. For the first time since Sarah's death, I felt like I might be capable of happiness again. As the weeks turned into months, our little family of 3 began to feel natural and right. Tyler started calling Nina his second mommy, and she never corrected him. She helped him with homework, attended his school plays, and tucked him in at night alongside me. I learned to cook Tyler's favorite meals instead of always ordering takeout. I learned to read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. I learned to comfort him when he had nightmares, to celebrate his small victories, to be present for all the ordinary moments that make up a childhood. Nina and I took Tyler on small adventures, picnics in the park, trips to the zoo, visits to the Children's Museum. We weren't trying to replace Sarah or erase the past. We were creating new memories, building a different kind of family that honored what we'd lost while embracing what we'd found. One Saturday morning, about 6 months after we'd first met, I woke up to find Nina making pancakes in my kitchen while Tyler helped by stirring the batter. They were both covered in flour, laughing at some joke I'd missed. The sight filled me with such overwhelming love and gratitude that I had to stop in the doorway and just watch them. This was what I'd been missing, I realized. Not just someone to help with Tyler, but someone to share the joy of watching him grow. Someone to celebrate his first lost tooth, his successful bike ride without training wheels, his proud presentation about dinosaurs at school. That same day, I took Nina and Tyler back to the park where we'd first met. While Tyler played on the swings, I got down on one knee and pulled out a simple diamond ring. "Nina," I said, my voice shaking with emotion, "you saved us. You taught me how to be a father, how to be a man worthy of love. Will you marry me?" She said yes through tears of joy, and Tyler cheered from the swing set like he'd known this was coming all along. Our wedding was small and intimate, held in my backyard with just a few close friends and family members. Tyler walked Nina down the aisle, so proud in his little suit. When I said my vows, I looked at both of them, my son and my soon-to-be wife, and promised to love them, protect them, and never take for granted the gift of family. As we exchanged rings, I thought about that terrible day in the park when Tyler had cried for his mother. I thought about how lost I'd felt, how certain I'd been that I would never be enough for him. Nina hadn't just shown Tyler comfort that day, she'd shown me what love looked like in action. Now, 2 years later, our house is filled with laughter and warmth. Tyler, now 7, is confident and happy. He still misses his first mommy, and we make sure to keep Sarah's memory alive through photos and stories. But he's also secure in the love of his family as it exists today. Nina's pregnant with our daughter due in the spring. Tyler's excited about being a big brother, and he's already making plans for all the things he wants to teach his little sister. I watch him with Nina sometimes, seeing how naturally he shows affection now, how easily he expresses his feelings. Just last week, I was at the same park where it all began when I saw another father struggling with his crying child. Without hesitation, I walked over and asked if I could help. The gratitude in that man's eyes reminded me of how I'd felt that day when Nina had approached us. Sometimes, I told him, kneeling down to his daughter's level, they just need to know they're not alone. As I helped calm the little girl and offered support to her father, I realized that Nina hadn't just taught Tyler and me how to love. She taught us how to pass that love on to others. The cycle continues, one act of kindness at a time. Sometimes the most profound changes in our lives come from the simplest gestures, a stranger's willingness to help, a gentle hug, a moment of understanding between two people who needed each other more than they knew. I used to think strength meant handling everything alone. Now I know that real strength comes from opening your heart to others, from allowing yourself to be vulnerable, from accepting help when it's offered. That woman who hugged my crying son in the park didn't just comfort Tyler that day. She taught me how to feel again. She showed me that love isn't something you have to earn or deserve. It's something you choose to give and receive every single day. And that choice, that decision to love and be loved, has made all the difference. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to remember that love isn't about what you have. It's about what you give. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected moments.